Soft science fiction, starry technology tree, organisms, it's too late. In front of the Supreme Lord, all technology is as pale and powerless as white paper. Confess, crawl under the giant statue of the Lord, and accept your fate. The devout and pure pastor bathed in the radiation of the sun and said kindly. Squatting at the corner of the street, Kaiyang spat the hawthorn seeds in his mouth into the dark ditch and half raised his eyelids, asking, "How many ships do you want me to repent of? How many ships does the Lord's fleet have?" Keywords of the novel. Shocking the universe with a little bit of earth without pop-ups, shocking the universe with a little bit of earth. Download the complete text, shocking the universe with a little bit of earth. Latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. Fatigue Ants. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Fatigue Ants 2100. Ludao, Summer Night. The sea breeze on Baicheng Beach stirred the driver's messy hair through the glass window. He casually lit a cigarette and reached out, asking, "Friend, would you like one?" Kaiyang looked out the window at the pitch-black sea, without looking back, and said wearily, "No, I can't." The taxi was driving slowly on the deserted asphalt road along the coast with a double flash. The driver stuffed a scratched disc into the old center console, exuding a sense of the past century. One moment of losing one's mind, one cannot help but lament, one moment of being in a slump, one cannot help but feel cold, even if one loses hope. Every day, one is intoxicated, with no soul or body, like a scarecrow. Life is like the waves of the sea, sometimes rising and sometimes falling. Listening to the familiar accent, Kaiyang sneered and asked, "Master, are you not afraid that this voice will be heard by aliens?" This statement seemed to hit the driver's pain point. He took a sip of his cigarette, cursed incessantly in Minnan dialect, and finally exhaled a long white smoke, using his unique flat tongue to popularize science. "Didn't you hear it in the newspaper? The technology level of aliens is 2, and humans are only 0.5. What is the concept of 0.5? Ants are 0.1. Hiding is a lazy use. If I had to say it, I would fire a gun each person, and on the day the aliens arrive, I would shoot him dog day." "It makes sense," Kaiyang silently agreed in his heart. The sea road around Ludao is very long, but Kaiyang's leisure time is very short. After 2 songs, low mountain with a cast gun turret appeared in front of the taxi on the left. The red barbarian cannons on the mountain have been eroded for 200 years and have rusted into iron pillars, covered with moss, shining crimson under the pale moonlight. "I heard there's a research institute up here." The driver pressed the brake and leaned half of his head out curiously, looking at the mountain. "He said he's studying how to deal with aliens. After 3 or 4 years of research, he hasn't even found a fireworks display. It's a shame that the people of the whole country have so much support for them. If I had to say, why bother with that? Children and grandchildren have their own blessings, and let future generations solve it. Can't we live this life well?" Kaiyang put on a yellowed white coat, patted the driver, and said, "Master, that's all for me." The driver suddenly hit the brake pedal all the way down, and the family portrait hanging on the rearview mirror swayed twice, spinning in the air. Kaiyang opened the car door and struggled to move his leg out. He walked to the window of the driver's cab and handed over 100 yuan. "Master, don't look for it. Go back and buy more food for the child," he said. The driver was taken aback and quickly pushed out the money. No one has been easy these days. "I won't earn more from you, as much as I should." Kaiyang stuffed the money into the driver's hand and looked up at the whole family in the rearview mirror. "There are things that future generations need to solve. If we don't start with this, they will only leave the problems to future generations, won't they?" The driver was stopped by his words, and when he didn't know how to answer, he saw the badge on his white coat. Researcher Kaiyang from the 3rd Industry Research Institute of the Ministry of Natural Resources. "Are you A barrel of rice eating white rice on the mountain. Kaiyang patted his slightly bulging belly and mocked himself. Don't. Don't. I'm joking, the driver quickly retorted. Take the money back, and I'll also come out on the way to get some fresh air. The family was too oppressive, so I talked to the passengers. Don't take it amiss. Kaiyang firmly pressed the driver's hand back and said, I don't need the money for food and shelter on the mountain. I'll buy more food for my family. Also, if you ask me, everyone should be like you, master. You should scold, listen to music, and shrink all day long. What do you do? When the sky collapses, there's a high roof that needs to be smashed first, right? He pointed to the research institute under the dark night sky. The Hulishan cannon platform was originally used as a defense line to resist foreign invaders 200 years ago. Today, 200 years later, a newly built research institute on the mountaintop is using another method to resist alien invasion. For people from two different time and space, there is no difference. The enemies they face are almost dimensionally reduced. The driver didn't want to continue to decline, and after quickly saying a few thanks, his curiosity resurfaced. Leader, have you seen that warning monument? Kaiyang raised his eyebrows and said, I've seen it before. 10 years ago, when I was giving a speech at the United Nations, it suddenly appeared in front of me with a clang. Stay away, stay away. Oh, yes, it's about this close. The driver was all dumbfounded. He didn't expect the little leader to have so many stories, and then the question came up like a barrage of questions, is it really that big? How many floors are so high? Is there still an alien living inside? What does an alien look like? Kaiyang grinned his stubble and sighed. He was only 2 years old and 30 years old, but his beard grew very fast. The warning monument is not much larger than the wild graves on the mountain, and I haven't seen any aliens, he said. The driver couldn't help feeling a bit desperate. A broken monument would disturb the whole world and make it impossible for people to sleep. This unseen alien is not sure what it will do to us. Did you see this? Kaiyang took out a metal shining stone from his white coat pocket. It was chiseled from the warning monument. No matter how advanced the technology of aliens is, I still have a gap with a screwdriver. Don't worry, it's not that difficult to deal with. That's great. The driver chuckled, smashing his lips. Leader, this is my phone number. Please keep it and call me if you want to take a ride again next time. It's free. Kaiyang took the business card, responded, and turned towards the pitch-black mountain road. He walked this mountain road for 3 years, with a total of 130 steps, and he wouldn't even make a mistake with his eyes closed. Under the boundless night sky, he felt a bit dazed. As the youngest researcher at the Institute of Nature and also the youngest leader in the field of engineering in China, he would have lived a brilliant life in the past. But 5 years ago, a warning monument that foreshadowed the invasion of aliens landed on Earth, breaking all of this. It silently appeared in the most heavily defended United Nations building, plunging humanity into a strange and absurd nightmare. All Kaiyang could do was spread his hope in this nightmare. But in the face of a vast technological gap, who will give him hope? The engineering of the 22nd century has long come to an end, and physics is even studying theories from 100 years ago. Aliens who don't know where they will come from are like the sword of Damocles hanging over the heads of 7 billion people. With only 100 years left, or even less, can humans, a group of ants living in remote corners of the Milky Way, be able to pounce in this short time? Ding 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 ding. A rapid copper bell suddenly rang at the mountaintop, and Kaiyang reflexively ran away. The bell sounded, indicating that there was a major mistake in the project progress. As the leader of the research institute, he must rush to the scene immediately. In his pocket, the round stone, shining with a strange metallic light, silently passed through his skin and melted into his body. Friends, if you think it's still possible, go to the latest chapter and continue reading. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Hope. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Chapter 2 Hope Destroyed. Destroyed. All his mother destroyed. When Kaiyang rushed back to the mountaintop, he happened to hear an angry shout coming from the old L-shaped bungalow. He pushed open the lacquered vermilion wood door, and the hinges creaked with unbearable pressure. In the conference room of the 3rd Industrial Research Institute of the Ministry of Natural Resources of Ludao City, about 10 haggard men and women sat under dim incandescent lights, their faces turned to ashes. "What's going on?" Kaiyang walked in and pretended to smile lightly, taking out a pile of sugar and sprinkling it on the table. "Is there a problem with the project again?" A middle-aged man with red eyes stood up and gritted his teeth, saying, 6 months away, there are still 6 months until 2101. We need to increase the operational efficiency of this broken robotic arm by 50% by the end of the year. We have only completed 5% so far. That's 5%, and because of my miscalculation, it's ruined. It's all his mother ruined. His voice gradually became excited. It's been 3 years. We've only researched 5% of it. It's still wrong. Do humans still have hope? There's hope for a fart. Do you know that engineering has no way to go? If we can't create it, humans won't be able to survive. If humans can't live, do my fart thing. I won't live now. Woo-woo. The middle-aged man, who was over 1.7 meters tall, became more and more excited as he spoke, and finally squatted on the ground, holding his head and sobbing. His sobs echoed in the small conference room, and everyone felt anxious. 3 years had turned into nothing, and no one felt uncomfortable. The 3rd Industrial Research Institute, also known as the 24th Institute, has risen from the ground since the warning monument fell 5 years ago, rushing to the vast tide of scientific research, only to find that ray of dawn belonging to humanity in a limited time. As a part of the industrial chain, the goal of Institute 24 is very clear: to achieve the goal of improving production efficiency in 2101, the first year of the new century. Nowadays, global industrial horsepower is fully utilized, and various defensive fortifications and weapons and equipment are being cast. The existing resource output efficiency cannot be met at all, and machines can still be used in quantity to make up for it. However, humans are not enough. In the production chain, manpower is still needed to make up for the small details, which are often the key. A single person's production efficiency cannot be improved, and there is no way to talk about the improvement of industry. When people think of the pressure of humanity on small research institutes, everyone in 24 institutes cannot breathe. As the academic leader of 24 universities, Kaiyang patted the table with a relaxed smile and said, "What should I do? Don't put so much pressure on everyone. Food is a stutter, and there are 7 or 8 research institutes in Fujian province alone that have invested in our project. So how many are there in the country? How many are there in the world? If you add up 5% and he adds up 5%, then the progress will be improved. And that's not a big deal either. I've seen the design drawings of your group, and it seems that the connecting rod broke during the test transportation limit, right? The problem is not with the connecting rod. Looking back, when the teeth are under force, the bending stress at the tooth root is the highest, making it the most prone to fatigue fracture. If it does break, it means the direction is correct, but the material is wrong." In just a few words, Kaiyang described the problem clearly, and the man squatting on the ground gradually stopped sobbing. He kept thinking back according to his words, and his eyes suddenly lit up. "Yeah." He shouted with a heavy nasal voice, "I just said our calculations won't have any problems." The 10 or so people present were all top talents or university teachers in the domestic engineering industry. With Kaiyang's guidance, they immediately realized the problem. The satisfaction of solving the problem quickly filled their hearts. Even though their faces were still habitually sad, their bodies had already loosened. Many people picked up the candy on the table and silently stuffed it into their mouths. Candy can supplement the energy needed for brain thinking. Kaiyang looked at the gradually warming conference room, and the haze in his heart was dispelled a bit. He had a piece of candy in his mouth and wandered among the crowd discussing problems, occasionally making sarcastic laughter. Let my niece come and solve this problem in 5 minutes. You still have been discussing it for so long. The response to him was Chi-Chi's disdain. Cut. This is a unique way of relaxation for 24 people, and Kaiyang has always been the most hated object in this activity because he is really amazing. In his eyes, the problems that others are pondering on are no different from elementary school math problems. Due to this natural sense of hatred, everyone naturally will not let go of the blow to him. During the discussion, he suddenly furrowed his brow and his words came to a sudden halt. What's wrong, boss? The team members asked with concern. It's okay, you guys keep going. I'll hang up a phone outside. When everyone saw that he was fine, they continued their discussion. Kaiyang quickly walked out of the conference room and arrived at the cement floor under the moonlight. Just now, a prompt suddenly flashed through his mind. Harvest hope value of 10 points, following closely is a highly industrial style panel. Kaiyang Scientist Level 0 Engineering LV1 200 out of 1000 Physics LV1 51,000 Sociology LV1 10 out of 1000, expected value of 10, Kaiyang furrowed his brows and couldn't figure out what was happening. He habitually went into his pocket to grab something, but found it empty. That is the family heirloom gem that my father gave me, which is actually a black-brown round stone, but it has been polished by several generations. Previously, at the foot of the mountain, he used this stone to deceive the taxi driver. But now I can't find it. His hand was still wriggling in the pocket of his coat, but the object was replaced by a round lollipop. Are you experiencing hallucinations due to being too tired? Or am I just dreaming? He continuously switched perspectives and ultimately came to the conclusion that the appearance of the panel depends entirely on his own control. If he wanted it to appear, it would appear, and if he wanted it to disappear, it would disappear. So, does this thing really exist, not just imagined by oneself? He shifted his attention to the hope value, and suddenly a sentence came to his mind. Hope is the most precious resource in this universe. You can spend 50 hope points to extract technology, and the extracted technology level will be based on your current subject level. Now there is a free extraction opportunity. Do you want to use it? Yes, Kaiyang cautiously replied. The data-driven particles in the air flashed by, and a thin picture book fell onto his graying work shoes. He swallowed his saliva and picked up the picture book, Engineering LV1 Drawing External Power Skeleton Arm Part. He tentatively flipped through the blueprint, his hands gradually changing from calm to trembling. At the first glance at the design principle diagram, he knew that this exoskeleton was definitely not something that current theory could design. But. Excited in his heart, he began to stutter to himself, but this is definitely something that the current level of technology on Earth can produce. Once this arm is put into production, the efficiency of artificial production will increase by 100%. No, it's 500%. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Power Exoskeleton. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 Power Exoskeleton. The next day. The sky is just right. The summer morning breeze sprinkled on Kaiyang's face. He was full of energy and fighting spirit after staying up all night excited. The 10-square dormitory was covered with densely packed drafts, and his pen never stopped. The more he wrote, the more powerful he became. He only hated himself for not having 3 heads and 6 arms, and his writing speed could not keep up with his thinking speed. Pop. The carbon pen, which had run out of ink, was thrown into the pile of drafts behind him. This was already the 3rd ink pen he had used, and in 12 hours, he had written a full 30,000 words based on the number of words used. Beautiful, so beautiful. Looking at the structure in his hand, a mesmerizing color appeared in his eyes, as if a lost believer in the desert was looking at the map, or as if a tram enthusiast had met him. The beauty of engineering structure is vividly displayed in this thin volume. Li Kaiyang, who thought he was already standing at the end of engineering, suddenly realized that he was like a tiny ant, looking back at the small stones in the hallway. The difference between this mechanical exoskeleton and the existing exoskeleton on Earth is the difference between atomic energy and firewood. Both use boiling water, but their efficiency is completely different. The biggest gain is still this: Li Kaiyang drew a circle on the draft in his hand. Inside the circle is a complex structure, which is a power system embedded in the external power skeleton. It can be seen that this structure is not only a part of the large structure, but also a separate system. With this system alone, it can further elevate the current mechanical power of the Earth. The complete structure should only appear after he has gathered all the drawings of the exoskeleton. Is this a miracle? He, who has always believed in materialism, couldn't help but start thinking about this elusive problem. It is difficult not to associate phenomena beyond the scope of scientific explanation. But what about it? Poor people have no right to be picky. In terms of technology, the impoverished people of Earth need this miracle, and survival is the top priority of civilization. Putting down his pen, he stretched lazily, and the panel of academic experience suddenly appeared. Li Kaiyang Scientist Level 0 Engineering LV1 300/1000 Physics LV1 51,000 Sociology LV1 10 out of 1000, Expected Value of 10, Good Guy. The research effort in one night is almost equivalent to his 20 years of study. The drawings of LV1 alone are so amazing, so the technology of LV2 and LV3 Li Kaiyang stripped away unrealistic fantasies from his mind, picked out useful drawings from the pile of drafts, and bound them together. He planned to first make a trial product of the external power skeleton arm part, and then hand it over after the experiment was successful. With this technology, the wheels of human industry should be able to roar forward again. Regarding the hope value, he probably has a realization that he can gain hope value through his own behavior, and hope value can be extracted from technology. So the alien hidden in the starry sky may not be an obstacle that is difficult to overcome. Li Kaiyang locked the drawings into the drawer, leaving only a notebook with 3 questions written on it. These are the mechanical problems related to the actual installation of the external power skeleton arm part. Once these 3 questions are solved, we can start making things. However, when it comes to physics, he has always been weak and needs to seek advice from young scholars. Each research institute is managed by young scholars, and there is an academician-level expert in each region. The old man in Fujian province is Mr. Wu, whose office is not far from 24 universities and is located in Ludao City. Having made up his mind, Li Kaiyang picked up his notebook and walked out dusty. Building of the School of Management at Ludao University. This college building, which has undergone several expansions, has now been occupied by busy crowds. Since the arrival of the warning monument, all majors related to humanities in the university have been revoked, making way for science. As the former flagship of Ludao University, the School of Management has also become history, becoming a centralized office for scientists. Unlike the deceitful Li Kaiyang, in this building, academician Wu Hui, who is nearly 90 years old, is the person who has truly seen the warning monument. Many people want to know what the warning monument actually warns, but academician Wu Hui never says it, not even his spouse. This always serious-looking old man often has candy in his mouth and uses his rosewood cane to knock on the heads of his professors. Some professors are in their 60s or 70s and are well-known experts outside, but like a wronged little daughter. In law, they dare not fart. Fool. You ask such a question too. The sound of crutches hitting rang again, and the engineers working hard in the vast office instinctively covered different parts of their bodies, trembling with fear. The attack of the old academician is divided into 3 levels. The first level is to throw your person and the problem out of the office, which indicates that the problem is extremely foolish. You can solve it by flipping through the book yourself. The second way is to get hit with a stick, curse again, and then help you answer, indicating that in the eyes of the old academician, although you are foolish, you can still be saved. This kind of question is beyond your knowledge reserve, and he can give some advice. The third type is not speaking. The old academician's silence indicates that he is really thinking. There are probably no more than 3 people in Fujian province who can ask such questions. Chen Xingyan. Come in, take this idiot to the laboratory and teach him how to do it once. A strong voice came from the transparent glass office, and a girl with a high ponytail and curd skin stood up. She was currently the most likely candidate to take over the flag of the old academician, Chen Xingyan. Known as a prodigy since childhood, Chen Xingyan graduated with a doctoral degree at the age of 20 and joined Wu Lao's research team. He is only in his 20s and 40s, and his theoretical level is unmatched. Although scientists do not talk about appearance, Chen Xingyan's appearance always adds some research speed to the dull research room. She stood up expressionlessly, wearing a plain white shirt and simple workwear pants, and coldly led the person away. Before leaving, she glanced at the other person and said calmly, "This experiment will take 2 days. There are oil stains on your clothes." The person looked at his white coat in shock, and there was indeed a spot on his pure white clothes. "What does it matter? It's okay. If you don't change, it will distract my attention. So the experiment will take 2 days to complete. If you change, 1 day is enough. Change. Change immediately." The engineer seemed to have received a command and immediately went downstairs to his dormitory. "See you in the laboratory in 10 minutes. He rode his bicycle over the shady road and almost knocked over passers-by. He quickly apologized, "Sorry, brother. I'm in a hurry." Chen Xingyan looked at the figure not far away who flashed onto the curb, wearing a yellowed white coat and sighing with stubble, and his eyebrows inadvertently furrowed. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Explanation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4 Explanation. Mr. Wu, a researcher from 24 universities, has come to find you. In the glass room, a professor on duty downstairs said softly today. Academician Wu Hui took off his reading glasses and rubbed his brow. 24 universities. What are you doing here? They said they came to ask questions. Ask a question. Can't you solve all the problems in number 24? Do you want to find me here? The professor in his 50s felt a faint pain in his head when asked, and he felt that if he continued to ask, the cane would have to knock on his forehead. Everyone has seen that it's a bit strange and can't solve it, so I wanted to ask you to take a look, he said software. Mr. Wu knocked on the shiny redwood cane, which startled the professor. Let him wait a moment, I'll calculate this equation before going out. Shaoli, you stay here for a while. Mr. Wu will come later. Professor Mediterranean greeted him twice and hurriedly went downstairs. Li Kaiyang looked at the office in front of him. In the vast space, there were 40 or 50 desks crowded with white paper and books piled on them. Each desk here belonged to the top talents in physics in East China. It can be said that if a fan from the ceiling fell, it could at least hit a professor. The last time I met so many experts was when I was at the Imperial Power Research Laboratory. In order to avoid blocking someone else's path, Li Kaiyang moved from the hallway to a neat desk next to it. This desk had a completely different art style from other desks, with only a blueprint and a book on it. In an office that was several times more stressful than the college entrance examination, there were only 2 situations where he could achieve this. Either a genius or a fool. Obviously not the latter. The drawings on the desktop were densely packed with annotations, and Li Kaiyang was bored and glanced at it. It was a power system. If it had been in the past, he might not have seen any problems, but after being baptized last night, he quickly identified the structural defects in the power system. To be honest, this design has been clever enough to meet the existing engineering barriers, and it is definitely a genius among geniuses. Li Kaiyang's gaze swept back and forth between the blueprint and the others. He was not someone who liked to tamper with other people's things, but if we can take this world one step further, even if it's just a small step. Li Kaiyang spread out his notebook and roughly traced the area with structural defects on the blueprint. He made the necessary changes and solemnly wrote 4 large characters, for reference only, then tore off the note and quietly pressed it under the blueprint. Where are the colleagues from the 24th department? They are from the 24th department. Here. Li Kaiyang waved his hand. Don't move there, Mr. Wu came to find you. After a moment, the sound of crutches clicking echoed in the office, and in Li Kaiyang's eyes, a spirited old man named Wu Hui, a member of the National Academy of Sciences, appeared. Although he had seen this person's appearance in various literature and deeds, he still couldn't believe that Wu Hui, who was in this state, was almost 90 years old. The old man, who was 1.8 meters tall, did not shrink at all, and his back was straight. Except for some inconvenience in his legs and needing crutches for assistance, he looked almost like he was in his early 60s. Mr. Wu walked straight to the blackboard at the front of the office, sat down, and waved like a university teacher, "Come here, I'll take a look at your question." Colleagues below looked at each other. This was a sign that Mr. Wu was going to get angry. People who have been in the office for several months are aware that Mr. Wu usually calls people to the small office to answer questions, and rarely goes outside to answer questions. This is like he has to teach the people in the office by answering questions. Attending classes means being criticized. Everyone held their breath and shifted their attention to the blackboard, secretly scrutinizing the expression of the old academician. Wu Lao held Li Kaiyang's notebook, put on reading glasses, and propped his hand on a cane. 10 seconds and 20 seconds. 5 minutes have passed, and the old man lifted his cane. He put both hands on the table and remained silent. 10 minutes will pass. Colleagues below murmured incessantly, but it had been 10 minutes since they spoke. In that wrinkled notebook, what questions were written that could make the old academician think for 10 minutes? 20 minutes later. Old Wu put down his notebook and said the first sentence, "Where did this question come from?" Li Kaiyang didn't want to say anything about last night and replied, "It was a sudden idea that came to my mind." Mr. Wu stood up, pulled down the movable blackboard with one hand, wiped out all the chalk and handwriting on the blackboard with an eraser, and wrote a formula with a swish, saying, "It's called a physics problem, but it's actually an engineering problem. These two subjects are not separate. I've decomposed this process into mechanical motion, you can take a look." 5 minutes later, the left half of the blackboard was filled with equations, and many people were lost in thought. For a minute, people were stunned. Who am I, where am I, and what am I doing? Wu paused for a moment, pointed to the blackboard on the upper left, and asked, "Do you understand here?" Li Kaiyang nodded and said, "I understand." Wu Lao glanced at him and pointed to the blackboard at the bottom left, "What about here? Do you understand here?" "Understood." Mr. Wu frowned and said, "I remember the topic of the 24th Institute was to study how to improve production efficiency, right? Why, I want to change places. It's the same everywhere these days, so it's better to do solid research. No one can escape this planet." Then he pointed to the empty blackboard and said, "Since you understand, just finish writing it." Li Kaiyang finally figured out the meaning in Wu's old saying. It turned out that the old academician regarded him as the kind of guy who specialized in studying difficult problems to get close to the teacher in school, thinking he was pretending to understand. He couldn't help but laugh and cry. Now that he truly understood, he had already found the answer in his heart after Wu Lao provided new ideas. "Lao Zhang, how is this? Do you understand?" 2 third-level professors were whispering to each other. "I understand in the first half, but I didn't keep up in the second half. There is a formula in the middle that I need to reconsider. I always feel that this is a very basic and new thing. I can't even keep up with you. I think my colleagues at number 24 are going to be unlucky. Mr. Wu hates people who pretend to understand but don't understand. If he doesn't understand, he will be scolded at most. If he pretends to understand, he will be completely ruined. Kaiyang couldn't hear the murmuring below. He took the chalk and wrote with great speed, filling the calculation process with 4 blackboards. Wu Lao watched beside him, his expression gradually relaxed, until the moment he stopped writing. The old academician rarely smiled. That's right, that's how it works. Then he asked the others around him who were paying attention to the blackboard, do you understand? The office was silent, with the sound of flipping through books and calculating abruptly coming to an end. Understood. Understood 6. Understood. How long is this given for thinking? Learning is not doing problems, how can we get answers so quickly? What's the origin of this young man? He can't keep up with the speed of Mr. Wu. Professors below the first level in the office have a rare fear of being dominated by academic achievers. From childhood to adulthood, they have dominated others. Seeing no one answer, Mr. Wu patted the chalk ash on his hand and pointed to his office. Little guy, come to my place for a drink of water. Kaiyang looked respectfully at the old academician, nodded, and replied, thank you, Mr. Wu. The old and the young disappeared from everyone's sight, and it was only then that everyone realized that this seemed to be the first time Mr. Wu had invited someone to his office for tea after coming to Fujian province. Besides, is there a place for tea in his office? Some scholars with a strong thirst for knowledge still stare at the blackboard, silently reciting the derivation process in their hearts, until an hour later, a professor of mechanics excitedly jumps up and says, This is a completely different way of thinking. My topic has a solution. My topic has a solution. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Prisoners Below the Speed of Light. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Prisoners Below the Speed of Light. Science, the most important thing is to ask the right questions. In the glass room office, Wu Lao pulled down the blinds and scanned the books on the tea table with his hand. He took out 2 cartoon-patterned mugs and filled them with hot water. The question represents the direction. Only when the direction is right can there be a road. Do you know what the question just meant? Wu Lao pushed the mug in front of Kaiyang and sat relaxed on the sofa. Does it mean a new direction? Not really, but it's getting faster. Your question has illuminated the fog ahead. If we continue to explore like this, a brand new signpost will soon be erected at the crossroads of mechanics. Unlike the pioneers who first glimpsed physics hundreds of years ago, physics today has gone a long way on the path of subdivision, like headless flies diving into the tip of an ox's horn. Therefore, the value of these 3 questions is significant, said the old academician seriously, blowing the mist in his glass. It's very important. That's why I asked you. If you're just picking up teeth and wisdom, then you definitely won't be able to write down the next steps. But now, the old man, I sincerely invite you, Comrade Kaiyang, to come to me. The current academic community needs inspiration. Kaiyang didn't expect his problems to bring such a big transformation to the old academician. This is the academic center of East China, and he naturally enjoyed coming. However, his knowledge in physics is too low. He is just a lucky ordinary person, and there will be someone more suitable for this place than himself. Wu Lao understood the meaning from his expression, but the old man was not surprised at all. I understand your concerns, it's okay. We all have a common goal to throw that thing from the United Nations building out of the earth. I may not be able to wait until that day, but I believe you can definitely do it. That thing refers to a warning monument. Kaiyang suddenly remembered a news story 4 or 5 years ago about Wu Lao and his delegation from the National Academy of Sciences going to the United Nations headquarters to study a warning monument. Now that the other party mentioned it, he couldn't help but ask, Wu Lao, can you tell me what you saw on the warning monument? It's really like what the media said, there's a countdown on it. Do you really want to know? Said Wu, holding his crutches in both hands and looking nostalgic. Think about it. I remember the location of 24 is not far from here, Hulishan Battery, right? Wu leaned back and looked at Li Kaiyang with interest. If you were the commander of the battery a few hundred years ago, watching enemy aircraft carriers floating in the sea, what would your thoughts be? Well, I'll probably try firing a shot first to see if there's a difference. Li Kaiyang looked at the dead fish's eyes and said lightly. Wu Lao laughed and said, go to the second to last drawer, in the literature on entanglement wedge reconstruction and information paradox, take out my tea. Li Kaiyang crossed the mountain of books and found this literature published 80 years ago at the bottom of the drawer. As soon as he opened it, 2 small bags of vacuum-packaged tea fell out. This is a good thing, the old academician skillfully tore open the packaging bag, and a refreshing aroma of tea instantly wafted into the room. The old man now looked like a child showing off treasures to friends, praising, I've been hiding for many years, wanting to find a suitable opportunity to drink, but I can't wait until now, but it should be around now. The top-quality de Hongpo was picked from the mother tree of Julong and produced in just 15 years. This is a treasure of real value. As early as more than 90 years ago, at the beginning of the 21st century, the mother tree of de Hongpo in Mount Wui stopped picking. Even before stopping picking, the 6 mother trees could only produce 20 grams of tea every year. The 2 small bags of old Wus could add up to more than 10 grams. Dark red tea poured into the hot water of the cartoon mug, and the orange tea soup quickly dissipated. The unique rock flavor of Mount Wui seemed to bring nature to this office. Old Wu picked up the cup and took a few sips, satisfied. The only drawback of expensive things is that they are expensive. Li Kaiyang took a mouthful of tea like a peony and said, Mount Wui is almost hollowed out. Don't talk about such disappointing things. Mr. Wu put down his cup and said, to be honest, people who came back from the United Nations headquarters 5 years ago to ask me about the warning monument have never stopped. There are high-ranking officials, scholars, and family members, and I have never mentioned them. Because they all lack the courage to face reality. The warning monument is like a mirror, where different people can see different things. Among the 60 scholars who accompanied me, some saw the future, some saw destruction, some saw madness, and I saw a line. Line. A scientific boundary defined for humanity. Those below the speed of light are all prisoners, Li Kaiyang recalled a classic saying. Almost so, the warning monument is like a prison guard, monitoring us all. Once humans cross the designated line, it will sweep the earth in its own way. It sounds like a large robotic vacuum cleaner, Li Kaiyang imagined, and the logic of so-called distant extraterrestrial technology was not so elusive. So Comrade Shaoli, do you still want to shoot that shell now? Every step we scientists take is waving the hammer that rings the funeral bell. When I hear the Tao in the morning, I may die in the evening, Li Kaiyang said in classical Chinese. Old Wu, I just want to know, is that line close to us? Very close, according to my research calculation method. With just one more thump, humans will cross this line, but we still don't know if there is a way to overcome the difficulties. The two of them talked about engineering for a while again. Mr. Wu stood from the perspective of theoretical physics and helped Li Kaiyang broaden his unique horizons. The tea in the cup was cold and brewed again and again, until 2 hours later, when Assistant Wu's meeting reminder interrupted their conversation. Before bidding farewell, Old Wu took out a wooden box from the drawer and called out to Li Kaiyang, Shaoli, let me ask you, what would you do if the warning monument was in front of you now? Without hesitation, Li Kaiyang said, I will use a screwdriver to curl it up and see if it really fits so tightly. Wu Lao lightly pressed the wooden box on Li Kaiyang's chest and said, I did the same thing. I scared those foreigners at that time, and it turned out that it wasn't without flaws. I actually took 2 beads back then, one was handed over to the United Nations, and the other I hid. Now I'm giving it to you. I hope one day you can forcefully stuff it into the buttocks of aliens. Li Kaiyang was taken aback for a moment and thought to himself that Mr. Wu, an academician of the National Academy of Sciences, was truly unique. He was no different from the old man on the street, and even more wild. He was not like a scholar, like a soldier, full of banditry. Wu Lao continued, remember, 24 hours a day, if you have any questions, feel free to ask me anytime, no matter how late it is. Li Kaiyang listened to the simple words of the old academician, his lips slightly curved, and his seemingly indifferent eyes lit up. I will definitely do it, he said 3 hours later. Chen Xingyan returned to his workstation, staring at the blueprint on the table in a daze. I vaguely feel that there is something wrong with this high-thrust engine blueprint, but I can't find it. What made her even more puzzled was why Mr. Wu asked her to design an engineering engine, even though she was a theoretical physicist. She held her forehead with one hand and was constructing a motion model in her mind. Suddenly, she saw the wooden paper exposed under the blue blueprint. There is a simple model drawn on it, with annotations indicating it. Just like a patient with nasal congestion suddenly having their nostrils fully open, at the moment they see the label, all the problems are easily solved. Chen Xingyan patted the table, grabbed the blueprint, and ran into Mr. Wu's office. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Testing Limits. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Testing Limits, Harvest Hope Value of 40 points. On the hiking trail of number 24, another message flashed through Li Kaiyang's mind. With a moment of thought, the mechanical wind panel appeared. Li Kaiyang Scientist Level 0 Engineering LV1320/1000 Physics LV140/1000 Sociology LV110/1000, Expected Value of 50, Wu Laojian is truly a national-level academician, and his guidance has increased his academic experience by several tens of points. Li Kaiyang felt like Ultraman, absorbing the light of all humanity everywhere, waiting for one day to transform into a shining form and kick the aliens' buttocks fiercely. 50 hope points, it seems like we can draw again. He only realized that the hope value was enough to extract technology once, and he vaguely had some expectations. If he could extract another part of the blueprint for the exoskeleton, his engineering experience would not be a small step forward. The particle data stream flashed by, and an industrial product resembling a USB flash drive appeared in Li Kaiyang's hand. Physics LV1 Managerial Artificial Intelligence Physics. AI. Li Kaiyang didn't understand how physics was related to AI. This shouldn't require further research, right? He pursed his lips, physics itself is a weak chicken. Quickly returning to the research institute, he walked straight to his office and opened his personal portable computer, plugging in the hardware loaded with AI. Ding dong. The hardware recognizes the sound system, it's a USB drive. A progress bar loading appears on the screen, expected to take 3 days. It seems that this is a ready-to-use technology that does not require personal research. Li Kaiyang breathed a sigh of relief and picked up the report from the table, looking at it. On the table was the resource report of Fujian province for this month, densely marked with red letters symbolizing losses, both year-on-year and month-on-month, making his eyes numb. It took him a long time to analyze the situation that appeared. Compared to the same month last year, the electricity load in Fujian province has doubled, but the demand for electricity has increased 5 times. There are substations under construction every day in the province, but the electricity demand is running low every day. The leader intends to tell everyone in this intuitive way that time waits for no one. This is an endless arms race, and you don't even know the level of your opponent. I don't even know my level. Fear comes from the unknown. What he can do now is to first implement the external power arm and effectively improve productivity. Old Wang. Li Kaiyang shouted out from the window, and a few seconds later, the middle-aged man who had been squatting on the ground crying last night appeared in response. Do you still have some materials left on your end? Old Wang memorized the materials from the warehouse and said, there is still some left, not much. We are all in short supply now, and the demand we reported 3 months ago has not been delivered yet. Sure, borrow it from me and I'll give it back to you in the warehouse in the future. Hey, boss. You need to take it easy. I have 2 more experimental models to change in the future, so you need to leave some for me, boss. 3 days later. At night. Kaiyang stayed in the workshop, caressing his left arm, which was covered in dark green metal. Every move was accompanied by a silky mechanical sound, reminiscent of a science fiction movie he watched as a child. The passive part of the robotic arm has finally been completed. There are currently 2 types of exoskeleton. Active and passive. The core design concept remains unchanged, and both rely on mechanical structures to assist the human body in completing actions, like a multiplier. However, in situations where the multiplier is difficult to break through, the final amount of force that can be exerted still depends on the human body's own strength. The best exoskeleton nowadays is produced by the First Industrial Research Institute of the Imperial Capital, which can lift a weight of about 100 kilograms without a power source. This is already a very impressive number. You should know that he struggles to lift a 50-pound object empty-handed. So how much can my robotic arm lift without a source? He suddenly saw the Madberg hemispherical device used to test tension in the workshop. One end of the ball was fixed on the base, and the other end led out a grip handle. As long as the air in the ball was extracted, the atmospheric pressure would tightly press the 2 hemispheres together. The more air was extracted, the harder it was to break them apart. Kaiyang operated the tester and adjusted the device to 50, which is a force of 50 kilograms, in order to pull the ball open. He stood above the handle, sinking his shoulders and inhaling. Bo! Before he could finish his breath, the ball was easily pulled apart, and he didn't even feel the burden. It's still conservative. Kaiyang reset the device to 100. After all, the previous estimate was for a 500% efficiency improvement, which was built on the basis of active power. Now, the power source still needs 2 parts to be implemented, so I dare not play too much. With another bang, 100 was easily pulled apart. I miscalculated twice in a row, and Kaiyang's heart crossed and adjusted the value to 500. I have it this time. He bent his legs, took a deep breath, stretched his neck, and lifted it hard, boom. A muffled sound, like a giant toilet horse pulling off a tile, finally conquering the 500-kilogram force. Kaiyang threw down the ball shell in his hand and sat down on the ground wearing coarse clothing. 500 is not the limit of a robotic arm, it is his limit, which means that the arm can amplify his strength by a full 20 times. This is just a passive situation. If the power system is embedded, how frightening would this number be? Thinking of this, Kaiyang was aroused and took off the external power bone at his left arm, running out of the workshop. The power system still needs 2 microshafts to be installed, and the 24th Institute cannot produce this military-grade accessory. Either they report the demand and wait indefinitely, or they go to the black market to replace it. Without waiting for a moment, he chose the latter. Target Ludao 8 cities move forward. East China Institute of Physics. Chen Xingyan stared at the resume on the table without saying a word. Full score gold medal in the International Cassini Engineering Competition in July 2081, recommended to the Department of Power and Structural Engineering at Imperial University in July 2088, obtained a bachelor's degree from Imperial University in June 2090, and was selected for the Top Talent Training Program of the School of Engineering at Imperial University in the same year, obtained a doctoral degree from Imperial University in July 2092 and was selected as a National Young Scholar, joined the Imperial Power Research Office in January 2093 as a researcher in aerospace power technology, in December 2095, dispatched to the 3rd Industry Research Institute of the Ministry of Natural Resources of Fujian Province as a researcher. The owner of this resume is naturally Kaiyang. 3 days ago, the only person who could have stuffed a note on his desk was him. What puzzled Chen Xingyan was that although Kaiyang's resume was not as excellent as hers, he could still enjoy it in the imperial capital. Why did he go to 24 universities to become a researcher? The Power Research Laboratory in Daijing is one of the top laboratories in the country, especially in an era when top talents are scarce. It is simply a waste to have it in 24 universities. Forget it. She buried her resume under the information, and whenever she had the chance to meet, she could just ask. She still has something to do today and doesn't have the time to worry about so much. Xingyan, this is the part you requested. It has arrived, please take a look. The ant in charge of inbound and outbound operations in the office walked over with 2 precision micro-axes. Chen Xingyan took the micro-axes and roughly drew them with a caliper, showing a satisfied smile. This is the part required for the modified power system. She searched all over Fujian province but couldn't find it. In the end, she had to report the demand to the higher authorities and make temporary processing. She thought it would take at least a month, but she didn't expect it to arrive in 3 days. Thank you, Aunt Chang. She neatly put the parts into her shoulder bag, and Aunt Chang smiled and said it was okay. Seeing that she was leaving, she looked at the date and suddenly realized, are you going to Bashi again today? Chen Xingyan nodded and said, the boss buys goods once a month, and if he goes late, he will be gone. Aunt Chang seemed to be looking at her eldest daughter and jokingly said, I really don't know how talented you are. My child also reads novels every day, so why haven't we seen any intelligence? Perhaps I haven't seen enough, Chen Xingyan shrugged and wryly pursed his mouth. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Changes. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7 Changes Ludao 8 Cities. Before the advent of the age, Ba Shi was a well-known vegetable market and a must-visit check.in destination for tourists from other places. Under the dual impact of economic downturn and the arrival of warning signs, people nowadays can no longer enjoy playing, and this place has instead become a place for exchanging old goods. The entrance of the 8 cities faces the asphalt road, with a sturdy overpass pier in the middle, covered in vines. Last time I came, was it still when I graduated from college? 8 years have passed in a blink of an eye, and when I was young, my 8 abdominal muscles combined into one, and the 2 of my peers also became one. Flipping over the guardrail, we entered a narrow alley lined with various parts and raw materials. The shop owners sat on the ground, staring blankly at their stalls under the flickering street lights. How much does this 4-stroke engine cost? Li Kaiyang spotted an engine covered in oil stains. Judging from the blurred license plate, it was a foreign product with a long history, and there might be something he wanted inside. 300 kilowatt-hours of electricity, or 10 pounds of pork, if you want it, I can still give you $1,000. Nowadays, priority is given to ensuring industrial production with electricity consumption. Each household has a quota on their smart electricity meter, which can be cut off at the right time. In this era, all house and car bills are not as convincing as electricity bills. The US dollar is even more miserable. With over 100 years of currency issuance and facing a global chess game, the US dollar, which is no longer qualified to anchor oil, even feels too hard to wipe its butt. Li Kaiyang doesn't have many electric tickets in his hands, but his father has raised dozens of mountain pigs in his hometown in northern Fujian, which makes him seem like he has suddenly become a second-generation pig. It's really an absurd era. Where did this thing come from? Li Kaiyang wiped off the oil stains on the nameplate with his sleeve, revealing a string of English, meaning it was specifically for the army. The Wui mining base was replaced, and the Americans gave away hundreds of construction vehicles. It took less than half a year for them to be reimbursed, and they even broke my hand. Upon hearing these words, Li Kaiyang noticed that the vendor's sleeve was empty, like a fire hose lying on the ground. It's better not to do it, the vendor scratched his chin, his nails rubbing against his stubble and making a loud noise. Those mechanical things always go on strike, and when the task comes down, they have to rush up and do it themselves, so tired they can urinate and bleed. Has the Wui base been equipped with exoskeletons? Li Kaiyang used the vendor's toolkit to remove the engine casing and spoke up. Oh, you're saying that thing like a robot, it comes with it, but it's not very useful. It can only be lifted up to 200 or 300 pounds at most. Things weighing 200 or 300 pounds are considered light at the base. How about this engine? Do you want it? If you really want to buy it, I'll give you a cheaper price. My son is also at the base, and I want to take advantage of his return in the next few days to make pork dumplings for him to repair his health. Li Kaiyang couldn't find the micro shaft he wanted in the engine. He shook his head and didn't look at the disappointed expression in the stall owner's eyes. He quietly left the stall. The days of struggle will always change. He breathed a sigh of relief for himself. After walking through the black market from beginning to end, Li Kaiyang still didn't find the micro-axis he needed. Can he only report it? Handing over the passive exoskeleton can also complete the task, but he always wants to do better so as not to have a knot in his heart. He is a person who is afraid of trouble, and he never wants to finish something twice that can be done in one go. But currently it seems that this is the only way. Little brother, what you need here is really too biased. The largest repair shop in the black market, the owner slammed onto a white cloth and struggled to dust the parts on his hands. On the left half of the store is a wall of hardware accessories, and on the right half is a wall of books. Two completely different art styles mysteriously blend together in the store. Boss, why are you still selling books? Li Kaiyang looked at the book wall and found that in addition to professional books, there were also many novels and comics, many of which were old and enduring books from a century ago. The economy is going down, so we need to do some side jobs. The shopkeeper in his 40s lowered his head and looked at the tall and thin young man through the cracks of his glasses, teasing him. Surprisingly, there is still this book. Li Kaiyang's fingertips crossed a faded spine of the book, and the name on it surprised him a bit. This comic book was his only regret when he was a child. After reading half of it, it was snatched away by Xiaopeng in his class and never returned. A 50 electricity bill is not on credit. The boss focused on polishing the parts under the light, shouting without looking back. Just as Li Kaiyang was about to take out the book, another slender finger also rested on the spine of the book, grabbing it out in front of him. The two of them pinched the book back and forth, but neither of them refused to let it go. Li Kaiyang. With an oval face, the simple and elegant white girl frowned and asked tentatively. Li Kaiyang looked down at his chest tag and realized he had forgotten to take it off. His fingers, holding the spine of the book, secretly exerted some force and dragged the comic book towards him, saying, "Why? Do you know me?" Chen Xingyan noticed the other person's small movements and his eyebrows tightened. This guy's naughty aura almost instantly dispelled her last good impression. "I saw this book first," he said. She pinched her middle fingers and pulled the book to her chest. When Li Kaiyang went to find Mr. Wu, he did not encounter Chen Xingyan directly. The two of them just brushed past each other, and he, who had always been blind, could not remember who this person was. Remembering it was useless. She was not chubby and lacked the ability to knock herself down with a single shot. If he comes to the black market on his own, he must do something, otherwise he will have too much trouble tonight. 51 books, not on credit. The boss shouted again, and Chen Xingyan, who received instructions, ran to the counter with a book out of his hand. The other free hand reached into his shoulder bag to pay. "You don't need to change 100. She unquestionably patted the money onto the table, and the miniature scroll wrapped in a transparent bag also fell to the ground. "You have this." Li Kaiyang took advantage of her distraction and pulled out the book, firmly controlling it in his chest. "I want this, I can exchange it with you." "Give you that book, I don't want it anymore." Chen Xingyan gritted his teeth and gave the book to this unkempt man. "Are you joking? The miniature scroll is such an important thing, and he wants to exchange it with a broken book. Anyway, there are still so many books here, why hang a tree? Oh, okay. Li Kaiyang responded with a wooden tone, opened his book, and read, when the Earth came to travel on the surface of the moon, he found a girl with rabbit ears. The disc fired by the magic gun created a six-pointed star formation in the open space, and the dazzling light cut through the sky. A huge head slowly emerged from the formation. That's enough. Chen Xingyan slapped the comic book and threw the miniature scroll onto the table. Bet a game, if you win, give it to you. If I win, give the comic book to me. Li Kaiyang closed his book and grinned to the sky, okay, but I'll choose the gambling game. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Special Metal Balls. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Special Metal Balls, bet on this, whoever puts it together will win. Li Kaiyang pointed to the parts in the shop owner's hand that were shining brightly, full of confidence. Spell 100 at a time. The boss casually pushed over a piece of cardboard with red letters on a white background, on which 2 lines of text were written. Prototype Challenge, 100 at a time. Win 5,000 and take it away, lose and keep the photo. The white wall on the left side of the entrance is covered with the remarkable achievements of the prototype, all left by people who cannot assemble it, dating back to 20 years ago. Chen Xingyan cleverly glanced at them. She had long known about the shop owner's reward for assembling prototypes, but it had always been used as a gimmick to attract business as a puzzle gadget like a Luban lock. What if both of us spell it out? The shop owner put down the last part in his hand and looked at her with a smile. Don't worry, no one can piece it together, and neither can you too. Although I know you should be some kind of scientist or engineer, did you see the photo in the middle? When he came here 15 years ago, he didn't put it together. Later, I heard that he went to Harvard to tinker with some dynamics, and such an amazing person still couldn't put it together. Upon closer inspection, Chen Xingyan's mind came up with an entry. Professor of Engineering and Applied Sciences at Harvard University. He was half as ranked as Mr. Wu, but more impressive than most people in the Physics Research Institute. The world of practice is never solely based on seniority. No one can spell it out. Li Kaiyang fiddled with the parts on the glass counter. Then you're not just lying, are you? The shopkeeper pouted and said, look at the top photo, the complete prototype. When the customer first sent it to me for repair, it was like that. However, it has been 20 years since he sent it, so it's better not to come and collect it. I can't fix it anyway. Li Kaiyang looked at the moldy and curly photo at the top of the photo wall, and could vaguely see the original appearance of this prototype, a large ball with a diameter of about 50 centimeters. Do you have any further questions, friend? Li Kaiyang looked at the miniature shaft on the table, drooling. Let's get started. Chen Xingyan replied lightly. Turning the broken hair on her side face behind her ear, Chen Xingyan looked through all the parts, closed her eyes, and quickly constructed the combination of each part in her mind. 5 minutes later, she opened her eyes and quickly assembled her hands. The boss at the counter gradually sat up straight from the position of one hand supporting her cheeks. Can you really spell it out? The boss is also an experienced craftsman. The female customer's first 10 pieces of parts are assembled in the same way as him, even faster than him. But this is his experience accumulated after 20 years of exploration. The other party only observed for a few minutes. I regret it a bit. Maybe these 5,000 yuan will really go out. The boss was overjoyed. Although he said he regretted it, he looked forward to the 20-year difficult peak being conquered, and his heart was also looking forward to it. These smooth parts are all his youth. The sound of metal collisions is incessant, and every time I hear a click, the boss feels comfortable, which means that a part has found its place. That's it. Half an hour later, the sound of assembly came to a halt, and the young physicist looked dissatisfied at the ball on the table. Why are there 3 more parts? All the structures fit perfectly together, and from the outside, it looks like a whole that has never been separated. Unfortunately, 3 palm-sized parts were lying quietly on the surface of the glass cabinet. Okay, that's great, the boss observed the dark brown ball back and forth, like a long-lost friend. This was the first time he had seen a complete ball appear in 20 years. A girl's height must also be a professor, he said with a thumbs up, sincerely praising. In the perception of the boss, the professor is basically the highest recognition of academic qualifications, and when he jumps up, he becomes the group of university students on the Sky TV. Chen Xingyan did not refute. Her mind was full of those three parts, as well as the clever structure of the prototype. Although the prototype's shape resembled a mass-produced industrial artwork, the internal structure gave her the illusion of going to a foreign land. It doesn't seem like something in an industrial system at all. Is it my turn, boss? Li Kaiyang ignored her thoughts and took the three parts into his own hands. Hey, young man, the shop owner felt a bit regretful. In his opinion, the prototype's ability to be restored to this appearance was beyond expectations, and he was eager to find a place to seal it now. Why don't we just forget it? I'll go ask you about the miniature shaft you want, and we won't be able to assemble this prototype. How can that be done? To be honest, young man, we won't compare today. I'll help you make up that part. I've been studying this prototype for 20 years, so don't dismantle it again. If it doesn't fit, I won't be able to sleep at night. The shop owner guarded the round prototype aside and said nothing to let it move. Give it to him. Chen Xingyan lifted his chin and ordered to the boss. The boss glanced at her and reluctantly handed over the prototype after 2 minutes. You have to come slowly, don't show off, or we won't take action if we're not sure, this thing, he said. Li Kaiyang didn't hesitate and quickly pulled out a few parts from the assembled prototype. With a clicking sound, the three parts on the table merged into the prototype like a magic trick. The entire body remained unchanged and seemed to have life again. It's really spelled out. The boss suddenly jumped up from the chair and looked at the prototype in surprise, rubbing his hands against the smooth shell. He never expected this young man to fully assemble the machine. After looking up and down for a while, the boss muttered, "How did you stuff it in? Teach me, I'll give it a try too." When a skill is mastered to the extreme, in the eyes of others, it is almost like art. Chen Xingyan stared at him with strange eyes, and his expression that he couldn't ask clearly posed the question, "How did you do it?" Li Kaiyang was too lazy to make a fuss. Simple geometry is like cutting chocolate. By cutting chocolate in a special way in a two-dimensional plane, an extra piece can be created out of thin air. However, in a three-dimensional sphere, more needs to be considered. The extra piece of chocolate didn't appear out of thin air, it just made the total area smaller and the structure remained unchanged, he added. Amazing! Amazing! The shopkeeper exclaimed while holding his glasses, "Young man, this is 5,000 yuan. Take it with you. Also, if you want anything in the future, just let me know. Uncle still has some connections in this market." Li Kaiyang thanked the shopkeeper and then looked at the miniature scroll and comic book on the table. "It's yours." Chen Xingyan bit his silver teeth, as if angry. 2 hours later. Late at night, people are still. The shop owner struggled to pull down the rolling shutter, wanting to end the day's business, when suddenly the sound of leather boots rang from the entrance again. "Sorry, come early tomorrow. I'm off today." The boss squinted his eyes, unable to see the figures under the moonlight, and said loudly. The person ignored the boss and walked straight to the prototype, holding it in his arms. "Hey! I'm talking to you, didn't I hear you? Put things down for me, you can't afford to damage them." The boss released the door curtain in his hand and walked over in anger, only to see a pink document from 20 years ago. The ballpoint pen signature vaguely visible above is exactly my own name. This is, "Hello boss, I have come to retrieve my things." The guest wearing white plain short sleeves hid half of his body in the shadow and whispered. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. A Divine Warning. Stele. You are listening at novel full.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 10. Project Closing. You are listening at novel full.audio. Chapter 10 Project Closing, Cas Alloy and Living Metal. Two unfamiliar terms appeared in the AI dialog box, and it is obvious that these two substances do not exist on Earth. Fortunately, there are not many other laboratories, but there are many testing instruments. Kaiyang has plenty of time to understand the physical properties of the warning monument. One night passed quickly, and the Materials Research Laboratory in the 24th Institute was in a mess. Kaiyang, looking tired, moved away from the operating table of the Riemann spectrometer and finally measured some of the composition of the Cas alloy. All the materials found on Earth, as for the living metal, no traces have been found. Perhaps the content is too low, with only 0.1% of live metal in 1 gram of warning tablet fragments. The current instruments may not have this level of accuracy to measure. After verifying the properties, it's time to conduct some destructive experiments. Q. How to understand the technological level of a civilization. The 4 words, like gods, given by AI are not objective enough. Everyone has seen lighters, which cost a few yuan each in a small shop and are composed of plastic shells, excitation motors, and combustible gases. Suppose there is a scientist named Ant who is good at thinking in the world of ants. When it encounters a lighter left by humans, it will have a preliminary judgment of human civilization. 1. The plastic shell, a man-made product obtained from the cracking and polymerization of petroleum, represents that human civilization has already possessed the petroleum industry, including exploration and extraction, as well as the entire industrial chain of storage, transportation, and chemical engineering. Therefore, the materials science, chemistry, physics, engineering, and even sociology on this chain must have evolved to a corresponding level. 2. Excitation motors. Similarly, combustible gases are ignited by excitation motors, which can utilize the relationship between the two and utilize electrical energy. The physics of human civilization has at least entered the electrical age, recognizing the relationship between electricity and magnetism and moving from macro to micro. The more advanced the creations, the more obvious the enrichment of technology, because they are all products of industrialization, built from various technologies. Although the structure of lighters is simple, without industry, even a plastic shell cannot be made. So, let's treat the warning monument as a vanguard of extraterrestrial technology. It is very necessary to understand its nature, and if we can find a way to deal with it, that would be the best. For ants, human technology is also like a deity, but in the rainforest, even fully armed humans may be bitten to death by red fire ants, and everything is uncertain. At present, there are only 2 types of weapons: kinetic energy weapons and thermal energy weapons. One is hard enough and the other is hot enough. Kaiyang decided to use the hardest Moro alloy drill bit on Earth to test its hardness. For thermal energy, it would be best to rub a hydrogen bomb by hand, but it's unlikely. Just simulate an ultra-high temperature and high pressure environment. G. A small Moro alloy drill bit collided with fragments of a warning monument, and a sharp sound pierced into Kaiyang's ear. Despite the small size of the Moro drill bit, its Brinell hardness can reach over 2000 hBW, which means it can withstand several tons of force. The twisting sound of metal did not last long, and the toughest metal on Earth ultimately ended in fracture. The first confrontation between humans and aliens was a small failure. Kaiyang looked at the fragments of the warning monument in the dim morning light, but they were still smooth and without scratches. The following simulation of an ultra-high temperature and high pressure environment still yielded no results. Under the atomic force microscope, the fragments remained smooth and there was no visible roughness. He suddenly remembered a story he had heard before, where aliens sent a piece of material to Earth. Whether measured by a ruler, microscope, or the most precise means, the length of this material was 3 cm. Like a deity, Kaiyang kneaded the fragments and sighed. In terms of the material of the warning monument alone, it can at least be considered as LV1 technology. Humans will have to run for another 100 years to catch up. If we could have the synthesis method of Cas alloy, it would be great. The existing technology will undoubtedly take it to the next level. After letting it go for a while, he temporarily put away the fragments. He had already added the power source of the external power skeleton last night. After the formal experiment was completed, he just added his own name to the blueprint and submitted the patent. What technology can be extracted from this hope value? For the future, Kaiyang still has some vague aspirations. As long as he can cross the threshold of the warning monument, the starry sea will open up to him. At this moment, Lao Wang, wearing a blue safety helmet, ran in from the laboratory door out of breath and said, "Boss, it's too late, it's too late." The project is closed, please notify us to hand over the task tomorrow. Institute of Physics, Ludao University. Old Wu put down the phone gloomy and rubbed his brow. In front of him stood several middle-aged people with restrained postures and worried faces. The warning monument is about to awaken, I need to go to New York. The flight ticket has been booked for you. Tomorrow at 8 o'clock, there will be a direct flight from Takasaki Airport. The few people waiting in the office seemed to have known the news long ago and immediately responded. How many projects have we assigned? It's too late, we have to close up. Please report the results to me and I will need them the day after tomorrow. 5 years ago, after the New York conference, academic leaders from various continents divided their work and utilized their respective strengths to list hundreds of topics, aiming to improve the level of Earth's technology. They plan to use the results of these topics as selection criteria and gather a group of the top scientists on Earth as a beacon for humanity to move forward. I thought there was still some time left, but I didn't expect to be stimulated by an inexplicable eddy current last night. The monitoring values of the warning monument skyrocketed, and global research projects rang the gathering bell. We need to gather the results in New York within these few days. 10. Mr. Wu. Send a notification, it's tomorrow, you're responsible. Mr. Wu pointed to the middle-aged man at the forefront of the team, the sparse but tidy Mediterranean, meticulous suit, and thick eye bags. He was a national candidate for academician, Xia. Nowadays, with a global chess game, the academic community has also adopted a unified sorting method. From the lowest level of lecturers to associate professors, and professors, they are divided into 1 to 4 levels. Above the first level, they enter the National Academician Candidate sequence, with 30 academician codes. The smaller the number, the higher the status. Once they enter the National Academician, they can be ranked globally. At this time, they are ranked according to the level of scientists, with the lowest being the first-level scientist and the highest being the fifth-level scientist. Kaiyang, as a young scholar, is at best a third-level professor, while Wu Lao, most people only know that he is an academician and do not know his academician code. Xia, whose name was pointed out by Mr. Wu, nodded respectfully and said, "Mr. Wu, don't worry, I will definitely handle this matter beautifully." Starting tomorrow, Mr. Wu will not be around. He is the only academic authority in Fujian province and even East China. Whether he can jump into the list of academicians depends on this time. The greater the crisis, the greater the opportunity. End of this chapter.